Hi, good morning, Kamal. How are you?
Good morning. I'm happy.
Are you in LA now?
Actually, I live in Atlanta, so I'm sitting up here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay. This is great. This is our fourth call this morning. We already called Harlem, Berlin, Hank in Florida, and now you in Atlanta. This is great.
You guys get around.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll ask more specific questions.
Okay, certainly. Well, my name is Kamal Sinclair, and I've been an artist in the performing arts primarily, but a lot of conceptual arts and exhibitions over the last couple of years for my whole life. Hank and I met when we were both freshmen at NYU Tisch School of the Arts. I was in
Oh,
the
okay.
experimental theater wing, and he was in the photography department, and just were able to really grow affection for each other as artists at that time. He supported me on a lot of my work, did a lot of photography for my plays and things that I was producing through a company I had called Universal Arts. We produced Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome as well as The Beat, Streams of the Unconscious, The Race of Time and Space, a bunch of offbeat, off-Broadway stuff. And then I was also fortunate to be a member of the cast of Stomp for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so I actually, after my freshman year, got auditioned for the show and then was gone on tour for 2 years straight. Came back, and Hank was an hourly sophomore. Trying to just be cool with the cool seniors. And so I ran a theater company for 6 years, was a member of a major production, Stomp, for 6 years, and had the good fortune of, when I had my two children, to take some time off of running a theater and went and got my master's in business
Oh,
at Georgia
okay.
State University. And that really came from the experience of seeing how well Stomp did, which they were buskers on the streets of London, to go to, phenomenal success. And then to see all these wonderful Lower East Side and Brooklyn artists that I was working with, that had amazing things, visual artists as well as performing artists that had amazing voices and amazing talent, but didn't have the platforms to have that kind of visibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I was interested in what is missing here? How can I help to create a diversity of voices that can have that kind of exposure? And so that's why I went and got my business degree, and have been consulting and producing since then. Question Bridge, I've been working with for 2 years. I came on in September '09, and it's been an amazing, amazing experience. One of the most fulfilling experiences of my life, I think, creatively, and also from the point of view of the mission of the project.
Wow. Well, that was deep. And congratulations. Well, I know you've had a little time to see some of Patrick's work, and I know with the Question Bridge project, it deals with the issue of identity. So I wanted to know how the work spoke to you when it came to that question of identity, or did it at all speak to you?
It definitely spoke to me. It's really interesting because the project that we're working on is about trying to make a comment on ethnographic work and anthropological kind of work, where it's an outside observer defining identity of a group, or it's one or two voices within the group defining it for the whole group. Kind of the issue with, or the kind of bounty we have at this time at the crossroads of social network culture, access to technology, and the data visualization that we have, is that artists are able to use those tools to invite collaboration from a group that they're trying to deal with the identity issue around, and trying to create art that deals with identity, invite them into the conversation so that their voices are not only present, but are the defining voice as a group. And so with Question Bridge, we're trying to create a visual way, for a critical mass of Black men in this country to define what does it mean to be Black and male in their own terms, which we believe will break a lot of the monochromatic or narrow views that we know from the social science research that Americans still hold, which are negative en masse. And that comes from Harvard's race IAT test, or the cross race effect, or the doll test. We know that there's still a lot of negative bias, implicit bias, not we hold it ourselves. I mean,
yes.
Everybody in this country is infected with that history that has, impacted our way of seeing black men as a group, and also the problematic thing of seeing black men as a group rather than as human individuals that have a complexity and a multifaceted, identity. How do you talk about every single person on this planet has all these? We're a makeup of so many identity groups. No, not one of we don't belong to one or two or three. We belong to a multiplicity of identity groups. And how do you, as a single person, own all that, express all that, and be seen as complex rather than, oh, she's this or he's that, I'm going to put them in this box and react to them and respond to them accordingly. Now, the part of what is important about why we're even trying to make all this visual is so people that are not within the identity group. Like, I'm not a black male. I mean, let's just be clear.
Neither am I.
I know my name is Kamal.
Yes.
I'm actually all woman. And so I know that there's a bounty for me to, as a non-black male, to hear and see the voices and the definitions from the group so that I can check my own assumptions, right, about who they are. And so that when I have my own opportunities to create environments of inclusion and not marginalize, that I'll be able to think more critically about who is in the room and all that can be in the room, not just putting people in boxes. So the thing that I think is really wonderful about Patrick's work, getting back to your question, is that I think we do, not only do we need the ability for people to be able to identify themselves in all that complexity, but we also need to, when you're on the outside, to be able to see others not only as a identity group, but as individual human beings that have that complexity and that approach every single person with that respectfulness for their individual nobility. And I think that it seems to me, from what I can see in his work and what I've seen of his process, just watching the video that was created about his process, that he had a very humble and respectful entrance into understanding what does it mean to be black in Harlem, or what does it mean to be black in America. And that, I think, is very critical, to have creative voices, people that are creating discourse globally, to have that perspective and have that voice be brought back to, France, or being brought to the world, that someone can look at a group and see individuals as human beings in their nobility rather than a monolithic group that fits into some statistical stereotype.
Well, you answered my second question. What does it take to impress you as an artist? You're a performance artist when you're looking at two-dimensional art, and you kind of answer that, and that is that you saw in Patrick's work the individual, not just the group, the individual. And so my other question I was going to ask is, how did you feel about the color uses in his work? I've been asking everyone about that, and it's been interesting how everyone has been taking on, their views about color. So I want to ask you about that as well.
Interesting. From what I've seen, and unfortunately I wasn't able to be in New York to see the exhibition in person. So
no, it's still, we're projecting starting next week.
Oh, okay, great. Well, yeah, from what I've seen of his work online, the colors seem to all be in the tones of browns, right? Is that?
Well, a lot of browns, but also reds and blues.
That's true. That's true.
I haven't even shared with people my take on the blue. That's very personal for me, but I want to share that later with folks.
Wow. Interesting. I hadn't really thought about how his choice of color affected my. I mean, one of the things that I found that I was taken by, that kind of hit me was the faces. From the faces that I saw, and I may not have seen the whole array of faces, that they were all in a state of, it seemed, either reflection or they were in a state of, he was capturing a certain perspective of, a strength, but there wasn't a joy. I didn't see, from the whole exhibition, was there a joyful picture, a joyful face?
No, they were all very serious faces.
Right.
And I think that was deliberately done.
Right. And that exactly. So I think that he was not only capturing the individuals, you know, giving everybody their time and crafting, you know, how he saw each person's face, but I also thought he was capturing a mood or a certain perspective of what it is to be Black in this country. That is something that I think is part of where we do have a shared experience as Black people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And the colors that he used, I think, brought that feeling of, you know, how we've come through a lot of struggle and come out strong. And, you know, the spiritual strengths that have been gathered through that historically and over our generations and what's been passed down of strength, but then also still a healing that needs to be done. You know, I think especially when the idea of projecting these at the African burial ground, which from what I understand, that when the bones were first, you know, excavated, that they did forensics and they found that the bones had literally, the muscles had ripped from the bones from hard work, right? And so, you know, that's not something that every single bone to have had those kind of muscular injuries. It shows that there has been an incredible history of strength and of trauma with our community that I think he captured with the colors and the particular faces that you know, the particular mood of the faces.
Great. Now, my last question, because we're trying to get to your two other partners in your project, is what did you hope you could do when you come to New York and do your Question Bridge exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum, how you can connect it to the African burial ground?
Well, our dream has been, we have these questions that we've gathered from 150 men around the country. We have 1,600 question-answer exchanges, but we had hoped that, we're basically creating a campaign through posters and displays where individual questions will be around the New York City area, where people can look at the question, look at the face of the man that asked the question, and through their smartphones use the QR code to actually open up a URL on their phone and contribute their answer. And we really felt that a few of the questions needed to be exclusive to a site that has some historic or cultural weight to it, and to see how does that impact how people answer the question. And the question that we hope somehow can be posed at the African burial ground is, do you really feel free? And I think that one invites people to say, to celebrate freedom, and then on the other side of it, to talk about what is left to do with the legacy of slavery, and as the descendants of slaves, to be able to talk about where we still are working to overcome the mental restraints or any kind of legacy discriminatory structures that are still in place. How do we continue to move the needle forward in understanding what does it really mean to be free, and to honor the legacy of our ancestors with really finding pathways to freedom, spiritually, mentally, and in terms of the structure of our country.
Well, I want to tell you, Kamal, this has been a real pleasure that we finally got to meet now, face to face. And I look forward to you coming to New York. We are going to make sure that you have that opportunity to pose that question at the African burial ground. And I just want to thank you so very, very much. And we're going to reach out to your other two partners to interview them as well. And again, thank you so much, and happy holidays to you too.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good work you're doing, both of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.